There's a moment a lot of people never talk about. It usually happens alone. No celebration, no applause, no dramatic music, just a person opening a banking app and staring at a number they worked ridiculously hard to build. $5,000, maybe 10, maybe 20. And for a second, it feels amazing. Proof of discipline, proof of restraint, proof that all those skipped dinners, delayed purchases, and quiet little acts of self-control actually meant something. You look at that number and think, I'm finally becoming financially responsible. But then a strange thought slips in. If I've been this disciplined for this long, why does it still feel like I'm standing still? That's the part nobody prepares you for, because saving money feels like progress. It looks like progress. It even feels morally superior. But at a certain point, saving can quietly stop being a strategy and start becoming a hiding place. And that raises an uncomfortable question. When does saving stop helping you and start holding you back? What surprised me is that the answer usually has very little to do with math. Most people don't struggle to invest because they're lazy or because they're reckless or even because they don't have enough money. They struggle because cash feels emotionally safe. That's the real story. A savings account gives you something the market never promises: certainty. You can open your phone and see the number sitting there, calm and obedient, exactly where you left it. It doesn't argue with you, it doesn't fluctuate, it doesn't punish you for sleeping. Cash is comforting because it behaves, and human beings love what behaves. We say we want growth, but what we often want even more is reassurance. That's why so many intelligent people stay stuck in the saving stage for years, not because they don't understand investing, because they understand uncertainty and they hate how it feels. A lot of people think they're protecting their money. What they're really protecting is their nervous system. That was the first realization that changed everything for me. I started seeing that the saver's mindset isn't just financial, it's psychological. It's the mindset of someone who wants every dollar to remain visible, reachable, and untouched by chaos. And honestly, that mindset makes sense. If you grew up around financial stress, of course you want money you can see. If life has blindsided you before, of course predictability feels luxurious. If you've ever had to rebuild from almost nothing, of course the idea of watching your money drop by 10% on a screen feels insane. People don't avoid investing because they're stupid. They avoid investing because uncertainty feels personal. Then came the second realization, and this one hit harder. One day, I looked at my savings not as a symbol of discipline, but as a machine. I asked a brutally simple question: what is this money actually doing? And the answer was almost nothing. That was shocking because saving had always felt active to me. It felt responsible, it felt productive. But sitting there in cash, my money wasn't building, it was waiting. And waiting is expensive. Inflation makes this painfully weird. Your money can stay numerically safe while becoming functionally weaker. The number doesn't go down, but its power does. It's like keeping ice in a freezer with the door slightly open. It still looks like ice for a while, but slowly, invisibly, it's losing the very thing you thought you were preserving. That's when I understood something I wish more people said out loud. Saving protects money, investing grows money, and those are not the same job. We tend to act like being good with money is one skill. It isn't. Saving is about protection. Investing is about participation. One asks, how do I avoid loss? The other asks, how do I create growth? And that difference changes everything. A saver guards dollars. An investor gives dollars a job. That line changed how I saw everything. Then another realization hit me. Most people think there are only two things you can do with money: spend it or save it. But that's not actually true. There's a third option: invest it. And the strange thing is, investing sits in a completely different category. Think about it. Spending is money leaving your future. Saving is money waiting for your future. Investing is money building your future. That's a very different role. In fact, the opposite of spending isn't really saving. The opposite of spending is investing, because both spending and investing answer the same question. What should this dollar do next? Spending tells the dollar to create value today. Investing tells the dollar to create value tomorrow. Saving sits in the middle, waiting, neither consumed nor deployed. And that's where many people accidentally get stuck for years. They graduate from spending, but they never graduate from saving. They stop consuming their money, yet never give it a mission. The money becomes safer, but it never becomes productive. Once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. I realized I wasn't choosing between saving and investing. I was choosing between storing potential and putting potential to work. Because once you see money as potential, keeping all of it parked forever starts to feel strange. Necessary for some of it, yes. Wise for some of it, absolutely. But all of it, for years, that begins to look less like safety and more like fear wearing a responsible outfit. And this is where the saver's trap gets people. They say, I'll invest when I have more. Then they have more, and suddenly the amount feels too important to risk. They say, I'll start when I understand the market better. Then they spend the next 3 years consuming videos, podcasts, and opinions until confusion becomes a full-time hobby. They say, I'm waiting for the right time. But the right time is one of the most expensive fantasies in personal finance, because waiting for perfect clarity usually means waiting forever. The hidden mistake is this: endless preparation feels productive, so it rarely gets questioned. But sometimes research is just procrastination with better branding. That was another uncomfortable truth. I wasn't being cautious, I was being elegantly avoidant. I had turned hesitation into an identity. I was the responsible one, the careful one, the one who doesn't make dumb money moves. But every identity has a shadow. The shadow of being careful is becoming passive. The shadow of being responsible is mistaking inactivity for wisdom. At some point, I had to confront a deeper question. Did I want to feel safe around money, or did I want to build a life where money could actually help me? Because a saver guards dollars, an investor gives dollars a job. That's the real transition. Not recklessness, not gambling, not suddenly becoming some market-obsessed genius. Just a change in role. You stop acting like every dollar is a fragile object that must be protected from the world, and you start deciding which dollars are supposed to stay on guard and which ones are supposed to go to work. That distinction matters more than people realize. The realistic version is not taking your entire savings and throwing it into whatever is trending. That's not transformation. That's panic in a different costume. The realistic version is much calmer. The breakthrough wasn't learning more about investing. The breakthrough was creating enough safety that I no longer needed certainty from every dollar. That's an important distinction. Most people think an emergency fund exists to protect their finances, but its real job is often psychological. Because without a financial buffer, every market decline feels personal. Every dip feels dangerous. Every red number feels like evidence that you made a mistake. When you don't have a margin for error, your brain treats uncertainty like an emergency, and investing becomes emotionally exhausting. But something changes when you build a genuine safety net. Not because the world suddenly becomes predictable, because your survival no longer depends on predictability. You know rent is covered. You know unexpected problems won't force you into panic. You know one bad month in the market won't change what happens at your dinner table. And that creates something incredibly valuable: perspective. The emergency fund wasn't the thing that allowed me to invest. It was the thing that allowed me to think long term. It gave me permission to stop asking every dollar to protect me. Some dollars could finally have a different job. Some dollars could finally go to work. Then something subtle happens. You stop expecting one pile of money to do two opposite jobs. That's where many people get stuck. They want one account to be both a bunker and a greenhouse. But safety money and growth money obey different rules. One is there to be still, one is there to compound. A savings account is a parking space. An investment account is a runway. Confusing the two creates unnecessary fear. So the shift became simpler for me. I stopped asking, how do I invest all my money safely, and started asking, which money is meant to stay safe and which money is meant to grow? That's far more useful. And once I separated those roles, starting small no longer felt pointless. This is another psychological trap. People think small investments don't count, but small is powerful for a reason nobody talks about enough. Small lowers the emotional cost of beginning. You're not just teaching money where to go, you're teaching yourself how to tolerate movement. The first investment often isn't financially significant, it's psychologically significant. It's the moment you prove that uncertainty didn't kill you. Maybe it's a small automatic amount every month. Maybe it's broad, boring index funds instead of dramatic stock picks. Maybe it feels almost anticlimactic. Good. Because here's the counterintuitive truth. The more exciting your investment strategy feels, the more suspicious you should probably be. Most real wealth building is boring. No heroic trades, no secret charts, no magical insight from a stranger online who somehow always bought at the perfect time. Just consistency, just patience, just money moving quietly, repeatedly into assets that have time to work. That sounds unimpressive until you realize how rare it is. People are drawn to exciting financial stories because excitement feels like progress. But in investing, excitement is often a tax on discipline. But here's the strange thing. The market doesn't reward excitement, it rewards endurance. Nobody gets rich because they were the most emotionally stimulated investor. People build wealth because they kept showing up long after the excitement disappeared. That's why investing is so difficult, not because it's complicated, because it's ordinary, and human beings are constantly tempted to abandon ordinary things before they have time to become extraordinary. Boring beats thrilling because boring can be repeated, and repetition is where the power lives. Compound growth is almost insulting in how uncinematic it is. It does not flatter your ego. It does not give you a plot twist every week. It just rewards the person who can keep showing up without demanding constant emotional stimulation. We admire dramatic wins, but wealth usually belongs to the patient. Of course, fear doesn't disappear just because the logic makes sense. The first time the market drops after you start investing, it feels personal. You look at the red numbers and your brain reacts as if something has gone wrong. Loss aversion kicks in. Psychologically, losing feels heavier than gaining feels good. A small drop can feel bigger than months of progress. That's why beginners often think, "See, I knew this was a bad idea." But experienced investors interpret the same moment differently. They don't love declines, they just don't confuse volatility with failure. That's a crucial distinction. A temporary drop is emotionally loud, but that doesn't make it strategically important. This is one of the hardest mindset shifts of all, understanding that movement is not the same as danger. If you plant a tree and check it every hour, the lack of visible change will make you think nothing is happening. If a storm bends it for a day, you might think it's dying. But growth was never designed to be judged in hourly snapshots. The market punishes people who need constant reassurance. That sounds harsh, but it's freeing once you understand it. Because then you stop trying to feel good every day. You start trying to be right over time. And over time changes the whole emotional game. You realize the goal was never to become fearless. The goal was to become structured enough that fear no longer makes your decisions for you. That, to me, is when someone truly starts becoming an investor. Not when they can explain every economic headline, not when they pick some amazing stock, not when they suddenly feel confident all the time. It's when they stop worshiping certainty. It's when they accept that some money is meant to be protected and some money is meant to be exposed to growth. It's when they stop asking money to sit still just so they can feel calm. Think back to that person staring at the savings app, proud of the number, and yet somehow unsettled by it. That person wasn't wrong to save. They were just one realization away from the next stage. Because saving is often where financial discipline begins, but it cannot be where the story ends. Eventually, you have to decide whether money is a souvenir of hard work or a tool that can extend it. Because money has a strange habit. The longer it sits still, the more it reflects your past. The longer it works, the more it shapes your future. And maybe that's the deepest lesson here. The transition from saving to investing is not really about accounts, platforms, or perfect timing. It's about identity. It's about no longer seeing yourself as someone whose job is only to protect money from loss. It's about becoming someone who can tolerate uncertainty in service of growth. The day I became an investor wasn't the day I understood the stock market. It wasn't the day I found the perfect strategy. And it definitely wasn't the day I stopped feeling afraid. Fear never completely disappears. What changed was my relationship with it. I stopped demanding certainty before taking action. I stopped asking every dollar to stay still just so I could feel comfortable. And I started accepting something that applies to far more than money. Almost everything valuable in life requires a period of uncertainty. Building a business, learning a skill, changing careers, starting a relationship, creating a better future. None of those come with guarantees. Yet we pursue them anyway because we believe the possibility of growth is worth the discomfort of not knowing. Investing is no different. The biggest difference between a saver and an investor isn't knowledge, it isn't income, it isn't intelligence. It's the willingness to accept temporary uncertainty in exchange for a future that doesn't exist yet. And the strange thing is, that's not just how wealth is built. That's almost every meaningful thing in life is built. Because eventually, there comes a moment when protecting what you have becomes less important than growing what is possible. And that's the moment saving stops being the destination and starts becoming the foundation. If this video gave you a new way of thinking about money, consider subscribing. And I'd like to leave you with one question. What is one area of your life where you're waiting for certainty before taking action? Because investing isn't the only place where growth requires discomfort. Sometimes the future we're hoping for begins the moment we stop demanding guarantees. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.